All right, guys, let's get this started. There we go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's BriskHeat's Tech Talk. My name is Thomas Jablonski. I'm with the tech support team here at BriskHeat, located in Columbus, Ohio. Today on Tech Talk, we're going to continue the self-regulating cable series. This session specifically is on the installation of the PTBS-GET power connection kit. Just to let you guys know why we started this series, it was to help ensure that you have a successful cable install. What we mean by a successful install is after everything's done, all the kits are connected, that the first time you power it up, that it works as designed with no scrambling around figuring out what's going on. One of the ways we do that is through these tech talks, some of our videos on YouTube, and through these tech talks I try to give you guys some tips on how to avoid some of the more common mistakes made during installs. So that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, on our agenda today, it's short and sweet. We'll discuss an overall goal, a goal you should have anytime you are installing any kit. We're going to go through the instructions on the kits. We'll go through the installation steps. After that, we're going to have a quick Q&A session to answer some questions you guys may have. Lastly, we'll wrap it up, and I will give you guys a promo code for those of you that stick around throughout the whole presentation. The promo code will be good for 30 days, and it's 10% off. The goal. So when you're applying any kit to your cable, the goal or the rule will be to make sure that everything is isolated. What I mean by isolated is the braided ground wires are isolated from the bus wires, and the bus wires are isolated from themselves, and the semiconductor core, of course, as well. While you're doing this, you always want to keep in mind you got to keep things moisture free. Everything stays sealed and isolated. You'll be good to go, no matter what kit you're installing. Paying attention to these details while you're actually doing the install will save you a ton of troubleshooting time in the future. Let's go through the instructions. Now, I urge you, as being a tech support specialist, to please, please, please read your instructions. A lot of information in them you guys can use, a lot of stuff that's overlooked as well. We're human, we all do it. One of the things that I like to call out is the kit components. Make sure that you have all the components that's supposed to be in the kit before you even get started installing, before you even cut cable, in my opinion. On this kit specifically, the components are 2 pipe straps. We have a TStand, 1 rubber grommet, 2 strain reliefs. One of them's for the top of the TStand, and the other one's for the power input. We have 1 junction box, 1 green and yellow heat shrink tube, 1 set of frog legs, and 1 tube of RTV. Now, you see there at the bottom of this slide, I have a section that says separate kits. And then when you look up at the image of the kit, the components, you see that there's only 1 set of frog legs, 1 tube of RTV, and 1 gray and yellow heat shrink. So this kit is capable of holding 3 self-reg cables into it. Okay, the junction box is. And if you look at the rubber grommet, there's 3 openings for 3 separate self-reg cables. The way we sell it for 1. And we do that for one reason. About 80% of our customers were only using it to install just 1 cable. So instead of throwing all these other, sending all these other components with the kit and them getting thrown away, we'd figure we'd try to save you guys a little bit of money and, just send it this way. And if you guys, whoever needs it with 2 and 3 cables installed, We sell the little kits separately. It comes with a frog leg, the heat shrink tube, and the RTV tube. So that's why we sell it. This kit's only for one, the way we send it out, but it's capability of having 3. In the instruction manual, you're going to find what tools you'll need. On this specific one, you're going to need a tape measure, of course, utility knife, number 2 Phillips, a flathead screwdriver, a little 3mm, wire strippers, wire cutters, needle nose pliers, and a heat gun, or if you're out in the field and you don't have access to power, you can use a little torch as well. Completely up to you. Other things you're going to find in the manual, it's pretty important, the dimensional callouts. So every kit is kind of the same, but most of them, the dimensional callouts are different. And sometimes you'll be in a situation when you're getting ready to install a kit and you don't have any room for error. So I suggest you, make sure you know where you're cutting before you cut for this specific kit, for each specific kit you're installing. And this is a good one. Additional callouts. I've done it, and I'm sure everybody else has too, at least once. I've started stripping cable for an install on something, and read the directions after I strip the cable. And I should have found out I should have threaded the cable through a couple parts before I strip cable. And well, I've got wasted time and now wasted material because I got to cut that section off and start over. So yeah, that's another thing, is additional call outs in the instructions. Read the manual, guys. Everything's there. Okay, I got off my soapbox with the manual. Let's go with the kit installation. First thing we're going to do is we are going to thread the cable through the TStand, through the rubber grommet, and through the strain relief that goes on top of the TStand. Number 1. Usually, guys, I probably, it's about 1 foot is where I pull those the cable through. So I got about 1 foot of play. That way I don't have anything obstructing, what I'm trying to do when I'm trying to strip the cable. So give yourself about 1 foot's worth of clearance. Next, you're going to strip that cable using the dimensional callouts from the instruction manual. I'm not going to go through the steps here. I've done a video before, and we have it on YouTube, and there's tons of videos out there on how to strip cable. There's directions in the instructions as well. But again, if you have any questions or anything like that, I'm going to give you my contact information at the end. Feel free to reach out, and I'll help you out any way I can. So anyway, regardless, you want to start with the picture on the left. And when you're finished stripping that cable, it should look like the picture on the right. 2 separate bus wires and your ground, braided ground wire, completely separate, isolated from each other. Next, we're going to put the heat shrink tube on. You can see on the left to where I slid it on over the ground wire, and I heated it up with my heat gun. From there, very next step is we're going to install the frog legs. Now, a couple things before I install the frog legs. Number 1, I check the lengths of the frog legs against the bus wires. And I do that just to ensure that I have enough meat or enough wire exposed after they're installed to make sure I got a good solid connection for that terminal that's going in the junction box to grab onto. Okay, so lo and behold, I did it here, and yeah, I had to trim off a little of the frog leg. So just a little tip there. And then the instructions call out or ask you to add RTV into the frog legs before you thread the bus wires through. I did not. I waited until I had the frog legs. Well, you can see it on the right, the picture on the right. the frog legs there, and then added my RTV. And I did that because I know RTV and it gets everywhere. And I didn't want it on my bus wires all the way through the tube. I didn't want to have to deal with it later on. So I did it this way. At this point, I installed, about, I don't know, about a quarter of the tube of RTV. And then I put a small bead across the inner jacket there, the white jacket you see on the cable. From there, I went ahead and pushed it all the way back in until it stopped. It couldn't go any longer. As you can see in this picture, there is a small bead in between or actually right there in the joint of the frog legs and the cable itself. That's exactly what I wanted. Guys, you've got more than enough RTV. If you happen to use the entire tube of RTV, you're going to be upset because it's going to be everywhere after you install this thing all the way on. So just use a liberal amount and make sure it doesn't get everywhere. And make sure you got a good seal on that thing too. After the frog legs are installed and the heat shrink is installed on the ground wire, we finish assembling the TStand, okay? See that rubber grommet on the left image? You want to go ahead and make sure that's inside the TStand and seated well, correctly, before you put the strain relief on top and start screwing down. So start with the picture on the left and finish with the picture on the right for this step. All right, so next thing we're going to show, or next thing we're going to do, the next step is to start putting these wires into the junction box themselves. I wanted to show this image before I did that. As you can see, terminals 1 and 2 are jumped together. You can see them in the screws in the very center of the picture there. Looks like there's solder in between them, joining the two together. And if you look at 3 and 4, you have the same thing there, okay? So 1 and 2 are joined together, as well as 3 and 4 are joined together. Okay. The next step, the next step is to get the wires into your junction box. Some people, they go ahead and mount that TStand in there at the same time. Personally, I've got fat sausage fingers, so if I can get away with it, I do it this way. I attach all the wires to the terminals first, and then after everything's done that way, I go ahead and hook up the TStand to the junction box. So on the left, you see the wires going through the junction box, and you see the metal lock nut for the TStand. You see that the wires are threaded through it as well. I've done this numerous times. I've forgotten to put this thing on, wired everything up, go to put the TStand on, and, well, I got to redo everything because I forgot the lock nut. So make sure you got the lock nut on there. The next picture on the right is the terminal assignments I did. I assigned one of the bus wires on the cable to terminal 1. And the remaining bus wire, I assigned it to terminal 4. The ground wire, I put it on the ground terminal on the left there.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
So after I got that hooked up, I'm done installing and wiring cable. I went ahead and installed that T to the bottom of the junction box and tightened up the lock nut.
Abraham, son. Good. I'm in the middle of a dream.
Guys, from there, we're going to add the strain relief and strip the power input wires, okay? Strain relief on the power inputs, and then strip the wires so they can be inserted and installed in a terminal. You notice on this one, I have the lock nut off as well. And here's the next slide. The input power wires are going through the junction box, and also inside the junction box is the lock nut. The wires are going through that as well. And terminal assignments on this one, for your input, for my input, I decided to use the backside of terminal 1 for one of my bus wires, and the backside of terminal 4 for the remaining bus wire. And the ground, I went ahead and used that ground on the bottom there, bottom left. Okay, I told you guys before that this junction box, this kit, is capable of being installed. You're capable of using 3 cables and installing it, okay? It can hold 3 cables. So I wanted to talk about where you would land them on these in this terminal block. So we'll call it cable 2. Cable 2, you'll have 2 bus wires, just like this cable, yes, and 1 ground. So I would land, personally, I would land one of the bus wires on terminal 2, the next bus wire on terminal 3, and the ground wire, I would put that on the terminal at the top of the screen labeled PE for ground. Okay, so now all this side of the terminal block is full. You still have 1 more cable that you need to install. Now, if you look at the opposite side of the terminals, the side that's not labeled or marked, excuse me, you see you still have 2 open spots there, 2 open terminals, plus you have an open ground. Well, that's what you're going to use. You're going to use one of your bus wires is going to land in the back side of terminal 2. The remaining bus wire is going to land on the back side of terminal 3. And your last ground wire is going to hit that ground terminal top left corner, the only one left. So I wanted to point that out. All right, so after you've got everything wired up, go ahead and tighten that lock nut for the input power. And last but not least, guys, go ahead and put that face cover on, and the kit's installed. Pretty easy kit, not very difficult, and yeah, it's pretty nice. We have other ones that are smaller, and you know, this one, being the size it is, yeah, I like it because like I said, I've got them big old sausage fingers, and yeah, it's a good kit, easy to work with. Okay, now I'm going to open it up for some questions. If any of you have any questions, go ahead and throw it in the chat box, and I'll answer them at will. Let's see. Okay, we've got one about the rubber grommet. Will it still be watertight if only install 1 cable? Can water come through? The answer is yes. So those cable ways, those holes for the cable, in the very center of that grommet is a thin sheet of silicone in there, and it's not very thick at all, but it does seal until you break that seal with the cable. And to break the seal, all you do is just force that cable through, opens the seal, and the ones you don't use are still sealed. Good question. And let's see, we have another one. What's the largest diameter the pipe straps can accommodate? The pipe straps, I believe, well, I know they will open up to 6 inches in diameter. That is the largest you can do that. Good question. Thank you for the question. Got another question here. Why did I select the number 1 and number 4 terminals? Does it matter which you select for either cable or power? Very good question. So I selected 1 and 4 for no reason in particular. I could have chose 1 and 3. I could have chose 2 and 3. I could have chose 2 and 4. And does it matter which you select for either power cable or no, it does not. So he asked, does it matter if which one you use in the junction box for the heating cable or the power cord? No, it does not matter. As long as you stick with 1 and 2 or jump together, and 3 and 4 are jump together, you'll be fine. Why is it easier to use than the competition? To be honest with you, I'm not sure. That's a good question. The competition, I can't answer for them, but I know our stuff. When I get my hands on it, I give an honest review, and I like the simplicity of this kit. It's easy to install, and like I said, it's big enough. It's big enough for my sausage hands, which is a big plus for me. I don't get that a lot. Next question. This box will work for 3 cables and a power cable. That is correct. So it has landings for 3 heat cables and 1 power cable. And next question. Does the instructions come with a wiring diagram? Yes, they do. But if you have any questions after you go through that, feel free to reach out. I'll be glad to help. Lots of questions, guys. Good questions. Keep them coming. Anybody else have anything? Going once. All right. I'm going to go ahead and move on. Moving on. Sorry about this guy. There we go. So that's all, folks. That's it for this presentation. I'd like to leave you guys with my contact information. That way, if you want to give me any feedback, have any tech support questions, have any future content suggestions as well. We got a series coming up here starting next month of our controllers, on our controllers. So we're starting that, but we're always looking for new content, guys. Any suggestions we'd be glad to listen to. Just to let you know also, there's going to be a short survey sent out to you guys. So please, please, please just take a quick minute to fill that out. And thank you all for attending. And lastly, like I said, your special offer code is down there on the bottom, BHTT4. And it's good for 30 days beginning today. Thank you again. Thanks for your time, guys. I'm going to leave this up here so you can get the information off of it. And this video will be available on YouTube as well as our website. So hope to see you next time, guys.